Surprise bill? Need fast funds? CashNet USA can help. When you need money fast, be the hero.
Apply in minutes at cashnetusa.com and get a fast decision. All loans subject to lender approval. Speed of funding is subject to verifications and your bank's processing times.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Content warning for discussions of addiction and abuse by a therapist. Someplace underneath.
In the world today, Satan has led many to believe that sexual intimacy outside of marriage is acceptable. But in God's sight, it is a serious sin. It is an abuse of the power He has given us to create life. The prophet Alma taught that sexual sins are more serious than any other sins except murder and denying the Holy Ghost.
I saw this right-wing guy and his wife. They're newly married with a baby. And I don't want to say who they are because I don't want to give them any attention that they seek. But they are so adamant that sex should only be for procreation of children and that you shouldn't have, like women shouldn't have climax.
Sure.
And they both look so sad. It is like propaganda of like, oh, I should not do this because you are walking in this light and you look like you're about to shoot up a bank.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no way they're happy. There's no way.
No. And then she tried to like offer up her little baby girl to this guy that's like a known pedophile that can't enter the United States anymore.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, girl, I don't even, where are we getting started on this story?
It's lore, girl. It is this horrible lore I don't need to know.
No, yeah, I'm glad we shouldn't give them any more attention for sure.
No, and there's a lot of like pastors I've seen lately that say things like women shouldn't be outside, they shouldn't be even podcasting or in politics or anything. And I'm like,
I don't think he should be in politics or on a microphone.
No, he's just saying it's so cunty and like sitting around these other men. Like no one's ever challenging him or questioning him. He's just sitting on his own little pedestal, his own little diaper footstool.
It's really echo chambers that create that, right? It's hard because we do, even on social media, create echo chambers and then they just feel so comfortable there.
Yeah, to just say whatever they want. And a lot of people agree with him. And I'm just kind of like,
well, I mean,
go outside.
What we just heard sounds like something an incel would say.
Yeah.
But that is from the LDS website, what was just read. So this is technically not a new phenomenon. It's kind of in biblical teachings. Welcome to Someplace Underneath. I'm Natalie Jean.
I'm Amber Nelson. Why are they so mad? It's almost like a monster that begats its own monster because you're mad that you can't see women have this normal interaction and then you just get angrier and want more and more taken away from everybody else.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's probably not one pathway that leads to that, but it just immediately made me think of, do you ever see the one kid from the Little Rascals who's gone insane?
No.
Oh. I also don't want to give his name over, but I'm sure you can find it if you want.
I've never seen that show. That's with the guy with the alfalfa with the hair that sticks up?
Well, the old one, which I used to watch as a kid all the time, my grandma always showed me, that is the first cast who obviously are no longer alive. Yeah. They had terrible times in Hollywood, the other place where kids are not safe. And then they did like a remake of it in the 90s. Henry actually really wanted to audition for it and his mom wouldn't let him because I feel like he actually would have been great for it. But they did like an open casting call for little kids. And so they have the full cast back as a 90s reboot of it, directed by a woman I love named Penelope Spheris, who also directed a bunch of punk movies and the first Wayne's World. She directed that movie. But one of the boys in it, I'm not even going to say which one, has returned to the surface as an, I don't even want to say alt-right. It's like extremist lunatic who lives in the forest with his wife and all their children. And it's like dark. It's dark, darkety dark.
Damn, why do they love living in the forest so much? Like, I love nature. I love the woods. I want to be in God's country, but there's just psychopaths.
Well, that's why the forest is scary to me, because I think if you go far enough into the woods, or, I don't know, the deserts of Utah, you don't have to live by the laws of other people. You can do dark things that people don't want you to do.
That's right. I saw this movie, Women Talking, that came out in 2022. Very good, but it's based on a real story that happened in Bolivia. In this commune, this religious commune that was away from everyone, and the women were being assaulted, and they had to come to a decision together that was like, do we stay and put up with it? Do we leave or do we fight? And it's really them talking and discussing and debating of what to do. And they basically, I'm giving it away, but they decide to leave. And it's basically saying, we may not enter the kingdom of heaven, but is forgiveness without them forgiving, is that just abuse?
Also, and I mean, that sounds like a very interesting, powerful movie. I'd love to watch that. But also, I think it also leads to the question, is the kingdom of heaven this?
Yeah.
Because then do I want to go?
Yeah, this sucks.
Yeah. Like, why are you telling me over and over again, this is where I want to go? It seems like I don't, you know? My mind is saying no, but I guess your mind is saying yes. And so I must be wrong. It's kind of the idea, right?
Right.
So I do feel as though it's important to mention that there are these kind of teachings, like what we just heard at the top from our lovely friend / producer editor, Adam, who read that for us, because I just felt like a woman was not allowed to read that, that the idea of sexual sins is sort of the same as incel culture in a lot of ways, even though they're not necessarily using it in a religious terminology. It is about not having people have sexual pleasure or power in their own bodies. It's about like denying people's autonomy, ultimately.
Yeah, well, incels wrote the Bible.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, and when they're all over the internet and people are like, well, what are they going to do? They're just incels. I'm like, they wrote the Bible and they went to the Wild West. Yeah, and they like put trains up. So I don't know, they can kind of do a lot.
Thanks for the trains, I guess.
Thanks for the trains. They sort of stopped doing that.
Yeah, I think also they were probably using slave labor, which is, you know, we don't stand. History, huh? So today, we're returning from where we left off last week, and I want to start this by talking about a story that broke in August of 2023 out of Utah. I remember it very specifically because we had been following this story, and it was the same day that our lives changed drastically for other reasons. So the same day, this news report came out that a very famous mommy vlogger named Ruby Franke was being arrested for what turned out to be aggravated child abuse. She is LDS, and the arrests also involved an LDS-based therapist. Though the definition of the charge aggravated child abuse can vary from state to state, the addition of the word aggravated to this charge indicates that the abuse is prolonged, multifaceted, and would likely cause grievous long-term bodily harm. So you can cause child abuse by, neglect or grabbing a kid too hard and like hurting them. Aggravated child abuse suggests legally that any circumstance intending the commission of a crime or tort which increases its guilt or enormity or adds to it injurious consequences, but which is above and beyond the essential constituents, I think?
Yeah.
Constituents?
It's very legal.
Law words of the crime or tort itself. So it is saying the term child abuse does not cover the gravity of the crime.
It's extra. Because when I think of aggravated, I think of like someone grabbing my shoulders and shaking me repeatedly, and my vortex is off.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
Yeah. So when this news story broke, it was obviously tragic, but anyone who had been following their story probably wasn't super surprised. I certainly wasn't, other than I was surprised that somebody actually finally did their job and arrested them. But they were very clearly not doing things that were good publicly for quite a while at that point. We covered them several times on this show. So
I saw a video of their the child. They forgot to bring their lunchbox, and they're like a kid.
Yeah, that's Ruby.
I saw that again on my TikTok reels or whatever, and I was like, "Oh, we all saw this."
Oh yeah,
there just wasn't a language to put to it yet.
I mean, we talked about it on the show at the time.
Yeah,
a lot of people were bringing this up. People were making reports. I mean, this story is so lengthy; it could be 5 episodes on its own. But CPS was called. The police were called. Nobody did anything for these kids. No one. So even though I could talk about this all day, I don't want to make the entire episode about it because we've covered it, because so many people have covered it. There are articles, videos, podcasts about who Ruby Franke is and who Jodi Hildebrandt is. You can find us talking about her on this show as far back as September 2022. Though at the first time we covered her, we weren't using her name because, again, we don't want to give mommy vloggers any more traffic. But now, because of what has happened, because the family channel is closed off, and because Jodi and Ruby took over the channel as mental health practitioners,
right?
We can now say their names. And I had mentioned Jodi Hildebrandt last week, the therapist heavy in the sauce of sex addiction counseling. That's who she is, Jodi Hildebrandt. Jodi and Ruby formed a sort of unholy union that in itself, again, an entire saga that involves child torture. What they were doing to the children of Ruby is what they do in like war camps. It's like,
yeah, they were like locking them in closets. And didn't they say they would handcuff them and then tape the handcuffs over it?
I mean, that's not even the worst of it.
Like not feed them for days.
Physical torture. Hours of torture a day. I don't even want to get too much into it. You can read through all of the reports, but it involves things like throwing them into cactuses and stuff like that. It's really, really it's awful to read it. And yes, hence why the both of them are now incarcerated and could be in jail for up to 30 years. Though, and we'll speak further into this, in Utah, sentences are really decided by parole boards, not judges and juries, and they could be out as soon as 3 years from this recording.
What?
Yeah. So if you're listening to this in the future, hi, did they get out? I hope not. We all have to try to fight to keep them in. I'm really hoping not, and it really sucks that people who are victims in the state of Utah have to spend their entire life fighting to keep the worst of humanity off the streets. The few people who I feel should actually be in jail seem to be released in Utah all willy-nilly by these parole boards. And I'll get into my theories as to why I think that's happening on another episode.
Okay, I'm so curious.
Yeah. So, though many of us became familiar with Jodi from her bizarre, I wrote homance.
Oh, because they're obviously lesbians.
Well, okay. Let's get into that. So the reason a lot of us know who Jodi Hildebrandt is, right, is because of this union that she created with the mommy vlogger Ruby Franke. And it was a public spiral that has captured the attention of seemingly most of the world. But Jodi, she has a much more drawn out past leading up to her arrest and imprisonment. One that involves being a figurehead in the world of LDS therapeutic practices. When we talk about the dangers of a network of professionals operating outside of recommended clinical treatment, Jodi may not be patient zero, but she has been one of the super spreaders of this traumatic pain and suffering that comes from this kind of therapy, this sex addiction therapy that they really believe in the LDS church. So we connect Jodi to this like horrible behavior. But she hasn't pulled these methods out of thin air. This is not she just created these thoughts in her mind. Looking at these two women, right? The mommy vlogger and the therapist, and go, oh, these are just isolated. This is nothing to do with those communities. There's nothing wrong with family vlogging. And there's nothing wrong with sex addiction treatment. It's just these two ladies, right? They did it. But this is not the case. There's just no way we can say that and be truthful that this is just the two lone wolves.
Right. Two Sigma wolves.
Two Sigma wolves in the mountainsides of Utah. So as we've been seeing through these last episodes, the practices of some LDS therapists who are coming out of the universities around Utah, including Jody Hildebrand, are seemingly unable to detach themselves from the doctrine that they have been fed since birth. That is, in my opinion, extremely harmful to people's mental health and the state of their mind. As in, I know the church is true, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I cannot express enough that coming from a mostly secular background, I still struggle to comprehend how people can function in a healthy mental space while also holding these very specific and extreme spiritual beliefs. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying that even through this, I am still struggling to figure out how that can be a healthy space to live inside of mentally. And those people who are holding these extreme spiritual beliefs and these high control communities, like the LDS Church, includes people who are providing mental health care. And not being able to sort out these complex mental divides, these wars that are happening internally, that has real world consequences. Because if you're a therapist giving out this information, if you are warring inside of your own head and you are spewing that out onto your therapist patients, then you're sending them out into the world as not mentally well people.
Yeah, it's like if I had a well in my backyard and I was like, come to my well, and I feed the whole town, but the well is filled with maggots.
Yes.
Well, now I've just infested the whole town.
Absolutely. And I think it's good that we can talk about Jody as this model for this wider issue, because we have so much now content, information, looks into her mind, including books she had written and stuff, that is a good representation. But it's not just her. Her therapy practices are being practiced by many, many therapists in this community. It goes without saying, but we cannot diagnose Jody's individual mental health struggles and whether they played a bigger part in this debacle, like, you know, her inability to accept things like her homosexuality. And of course, we don't generally assume sexuality as a rule for humans, but I will say there is an endless amount of testimonies about the likelihood of people who have interacted with her and have been abused by her that Jody is most likely a lesbian.
Right. Yeah, like I don't like to out people, but it's like you're hurting everybody else. Come on. It's kind of like when the RNC had Grindr crash.
Yes.
Then it's like you're making all these rules because you're so angry.
Yeah. And I mean, I challenge you to go find the video of her chopping that bush down in flip-flops and you tell me that's not a lesbian.
I saw that. Yeah.
Okay.
She's pointing to the roots. She's like, see the roots of sin and it's taking hold. I'm like, ma'am, this is a cactus.
Yeah.
Finding the music you love shouldn't be hard. That's why Pandora makes it easy to explore all your favorites and discover new artists and genres you'll love. Enjoy a personalized listening experience simply by selecting any song or album, and we'll make a station crafted just for you. Best of all, you can listen for free. Download Pandora on the Apple App Store or Google Play and start hearing the soundtrack to your life.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Yeah, so listen, most likely, we're just going to say most likely she is a lesbian, and that is completely unacceptable in the Mormon faith. No matter how many different ways they try to frame that they love everyone and it's okay and that you can be homosexual. No, you can't. That's not even just exclusive to LDS. It's a lot of churches where they go like, we love you, all are welcome. Once you're in, they're like, but now you have to stop being gay, okay?
Right. I did hear like some YouTuber the other day who said Utah has all this like great laws for gay people and Mormons love gay people. And I was like, who says this? Show me the facts.
That sounds like some propaganda right there, my friend.
Yeah.
Because that is not true. In fact, homosexuality is not generally even that recognized inside of the church. They kind of recognize it, but what they actually mostly call it is same-sex attraction, SSA. And they treat it much like a sex addiction, which is to say they treat sexuality at all that's not exactly the way that it serves their church as the same as doing heroin, right? So it is sexual sin. This is something that is promoted openly in the LDS church, including from their own website. This is a direct pull from their website.
Those who find themselves struggling with sexual temptations, including feelings of same-sex attraction, should not give in to those temptations. People can choose to avoid such behavior and receive the Lord's help as they pray for strength and work to overcome the problem. Problem?
I don't know how more clear they can be on their stance. They should not give in to those temptations, and it is a problem. They are saying it with their entire chest. So I don't want to hear any apologists. They are saying it right there. So something like SSA being gay is a thing that must be washed away, cleaned from, it is always discussions about cleanliness, purity, keeping yourself clean. And in order to get to the kingdom, you need to wash yourself of this disgusting sin of being gay, right? Also with the idea of just having like a boner is also, if you're not having a boner for your spouse, you also need to clean that away somehow. Usually that just means you just jerk off till you come and then you're fine. But that's bad, not good. So exactly how much that makes you feel bad, like, can you just take a moment, everyone listening out there, and just consider what this is doing to people, how many people this is affecting negatively. This church has millions of people inside of it that they're being taught this message as doctrine, as scripture. This warped perspective is being held at the same time by practicing licensed therapists, seemingly unaffected by ethical restrictions that would be cause for concern most places. And they are administering these beliefs of this church to their clients openly, proudly, with their chest. So when people watch the coverage of the downfall of Ruby Franke and her unhinged content with Jodi Hildebrandt, they see their cringeworthy company they started called Connections. Mm. They see it as its own thing. It's like, this weird connections thing they did. That's just such a weird thing these two women came up with. I mean, in reality, Jodi started it, but Ruby Franke boosted it with her platform. But like people still, I think a lot of people still see it as just this little weirdo thing that happened. That's so weird.
Gaslighting. Really? It's like, no, that's just that own little, we don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And then it is the thing.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
It is. And if you're not familiar with the LDS church, I can understand why you might believe that's just this own thing. But like you just said, people within the LDS community are also saying like, well, that's not us. We don't support that and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, of course you're going to say you don't support a woman in jail for aggravated child abuse. But what you're not saying is that the teachings of what they are telling people in Connections isn't really any more extreme than any of the LDS family services treatments at these addiction centers. It's really not different. Maybe those people, I mean, they definitely aren't going to that level of torture, but as we'll probably get into maybe next episode, things that are connected to these addiction centers, like troubled teen institutions, do torture children, and they are, affiliated with the church. So honestly, the crimes that Jodi committed aren't even that much more severe than what happens in this troubled teen industry.
Yeah, this is straight from their doctrine. Mm-hmm. This is it. This is the thing.
Because you need to, as you can hear Ruby Franke say on some of the clips that she put up herself, you need to beat the sin out of your children to save them. You have to take extreme measures to make sure they get into the kingdom of heaven, they get to the celestial level, which means you have to torture them, torture the demons out of them.
And then the kids that are tortured, what do you think's going to happen when they grow up and they have their kids?
They're going to go to heaven, Amber. God, are you not listening?
God, sorry. Wow. Woof. I guess heaven's just full of people that have been tortured and manipulated and gaslit.
Yeah, it sounds great. especially when you're a lady and the great reward is that you have babies for the rest of eternity.
Just get split open like a date.
Yeah. So regardless of the physical abuse aspect that Jodi administers, the therapies, the beliefs, they're right aligned with the greater therapeutic practices of these LDS therapists. By the way, if you want to go check their IG page, their Instagram is still up. Connections with an X. Go check it out if you've never watched it.
It's weird. They're sitting on this couch and like pretending like they're all heavenly and great, and it's kind of smiling, sometimes crying and be like, I had to face my own demons. But then you know that there's kids being tortured in the room right behind them.
Yeah. I mean, the safe, it is a human room-sized safe in Jodi Hildebrandt's home, her $6 million property. Behind the couch, if you go to the Connections Instagram, you can see them talking on this like beige couch. The door, you can't see the safe, but it's behind the door, essentially. There's a human-sized safe that only locks from the outside. Picture what a safe looks like.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like, with a huge iron door.
Like a Scrooge McDuck, the thing that you spin.
And they would have children locked in the safe as they were doing these videos.
God, can you imagine like being in a safe and maybe you overhear your abusers in the next room talking on camera about how great they are and perfect and moral they are?
I mean, yeah,
That's
I don't think it'd be
fucked up.
cool. I don't think it would be like fun, certainly. I wouldn't want to. I don't recommend it as a thing to do.
Is this why the church is like, there's this anti-empathy thing going on lately? Of just like, empathy's wrong, the sin of empathy, because it gets you to like feel what it must be like to be a kid in that safe. And that's wrong. You can't do that.
Yeah, and I do think the idea of using empathy means that you're not going to become beholden to institutions that take your money. Like if you start using empathy, you have to then you become more concerned again with this horizontal idea instead of the top.
Yeah, the guy told us what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what I'm doing is wrong. I'm just following orders.
Yeah, I think that's very true. So we mentioned LifeStar Network last week. This is a massive church-recommended system. It's a franchise, really, of therapist facilities that treat sexual sin. Jodi was the director of one of these facilities. So essentially, she bought the LifeStar franchise. This guy, Dan Gray, we mentioned him last week briefly. He created this thing. It's very LDS. It's very pyramid-like, where he sells the brand LifeStar, and then you can, as a therapist, open your own up. Jodi had one. She was the director of one of them. And if you look at it through the lens, you could say, well, you can't blame the company if one Burger King is disgusting out of all of them. This is a personal reference because I worked at the 99th out of 100th Burger Kings in the Pittsburgh area, rated quality, 99.
Oh, just boogers in the patties?
It was disgusting. You know, you can't say, well, Natalie and her band of degenerates who work at that location lowers the quality of all Burger Kings. You know, they're not all filled with crust punk degenerates and the smelliest man I have ever smelled in my 4 decades on this planet who made all the food with his hands worked at that one. You can't say all the Burger Kings are bad. So you can't say just because Jodi ran a LifeStar, that doesn't mean all of them are bad. Right? Well, I can't speak to the quality of every individual therapist who worked in a LifeStar facility, but the bones of the organization itself were, in my opinion, very bad. Jodi's practices, again, the ones we know because she openly promoted them, were pretty much in line with LifeStar's practices. Maybe not the physical disfigurement part, but the beating the demons out, the sexual sin, the shame, the SSA, the no masturbating, being addicted to porn, like all that stuff was LifeStar's
motto.
Core. It was their base. Yeah. It was their foundation, which LifeStar's practices were aligned with the church's beliefs. It's this thing that the church does with all of these institutions where they go, they're not church affiliated. Like, we're not paying for them, but the only people who are going are people who are recommended from the church, from family services, to go to them.
Yeah, it's gaslighting. This is a part of your church.
Yes, it is. There's not people who are going here willy-nilly. They're not just showing up. They're not like, this is this like world relate, it's only through the church's recommendations that they go.
Yeah.
Through the LDS churches. Their practices in these lifestyle facilities are because of the church's beliefs, because again, every therapist in them is LDS based in these facilities. But it's also, I have to say, not exclusive to LifeStar. They're just sort of the big banana of centers for Mormons. But there's other ones too. There's other facilities that are like this. We talked about one in a prior episode, I think maybe the last one, that was not affiliated with LifeStar, but was LDS Hope and Recovery. There are a bunch of them. And all of these different facilities have in common is that they start inside the church itself. Again, if you go to churchofjesuschrist.org and you pop in, there's the search bar within the website. You pop in sex addiction, a myriad of pages within the churchofjesuschrist.org site pops up. Here, the first couple articles that show up, it's addiction,
same-sex attraction, same-sex marriage, Satan.
Cleansing the inner vessel. I don't like that at all.
Is that a douche?
It sounds like it. It sounds like it's a douche of the soul.
Ugh, I am a daughter of God recovering from sexual addiction. My addiction was the darkest, most hopeless, and loneliest experience of my life.
Which I have a lot of things I could say about that, which I'm going to kind of broach.
They probably just looked at a picture of Brad Pitt and they were like, he's hot.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's probably, for a lot of these people, the case. Of course, there are people who have actual darker compulsions.
But they're the same thing.
Yes, they don't differentiate in the LDS church. It's the same to them.
This is going to make people fucked up. Excuse my French.
I think it might have already. I think we're too late. So you you pop it in. I recommend you all to do this because they have it openly, even though they have obviously been pulling stuff down in recent years. There's a lot of 404 error things when you pull up stuff about mental health on their website. And the more that I think non-LDS people go to the site, I think the more closed off they're going to end up being. But I recommend you to go now while they have stuff open. You can do this yourself. Pop in sex addiction, sexual sin, all those sort of words. And there will be nothing but different, 10 rows of pages of things they recommend to you. But it's not like they're taking you to outside websites. They're just going to a page inside of the LDS Church's website itself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? So one of these links that you're going to come to if you put in something into the LDS website's search engine, if you're putting in sexual sin, if you're putting in sex addiction, masturbation, you're going to see a link that is probably pretty familiar to even the outsider, which is, they sent you to an LDS version of a 12-step program.
Hey, this is Jeff Lewis from Radio Andy, live and uncensored. Catch me talking with my friends about my latest obsessions, relationship issues, and bodily ailments. With that kind of drama that seems to follow me, you never know what's going to happen.
You can listen to Jeff Lewis live at home or anywhere you are. Download the SiriusXM app for over 425 channels of ad-free music, sports, entertainment, and more. Subscribe now and get 3 months free. Offer details apply.
When you're on the go and it's time to refresh your energy, grab an ice-cold Celsius. Where zero sugar, 7 essential vitamins, and proven ingredients meets pure refreshment. Unlike traditional energy drinks, each sip of Celsius is a perfect balance of flavor and function. So whether you're hitting the gym, the office, or your next adventure, grab a Celsius at your local retailer or visit Celsius.com to learn more.
So
that's so scary.
It's not great.
Because I'll say this from personal experience. It's been about 2 weeks for me of no alcohol, no weed, no drugs.
Yeah, you've been raw dogging it.
Just raw dogging my own brain. And there, it gets hard sometimes. And I will try to find mental health counselors. This is just something I'm doing for a month just to kind of cleanse myself for my own reasons. And I have to be very careful. Because some of these people... They're predatory.
Absolutely.
And you just have to focus in on your gut and you're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Because example, the other day I was in traffic for an hour and I was so frustrated and upset and I was like, fuck this, I want a beer. Well, maybe I'll just go on TikTok and I'll look at it, some pages that'll help me get through it. And then it was a guy I forget what he said, but it just felt weird in my body. And he was probably Mormon.
It's quite possible. They are insidious.
Bad.
Yeah,
this is bad because you're taking care of like vulnerable people. You're taking advantage of them.
Yeah. On many levels, and we'll try to break those down a little bit. So when you go to the 12-step program that is listed inside of the LDS Church's website, so when you click on that, they're not taking you to like an AA website. They are taking you to their own church's page about their 12-step program. The original 12-step program came from AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was started around the 1930s, and it's still widely used today. I'm not shitting on AA or the 12-step program. It helps a lot of people. I think there are valid criticisms about it, especially because it's state mandatory for certain crimes and it is religiously slanted. So whatever.
You have to say there's a God and some kind of God.
But honestly, I'm also in the mindset of whatever works for you when you are an alcoholic, when you are addicted to drugs. I mean, I know a few people. I'm thinking of one specifically who everyone just assumed was going to die. You know, they just accepted it because he could not get off of heroin. He tried so many times. But one of the times, this 12-step program just stuck and he became sober. And it was like unbelievable. Like you know when you become resigned, like, oh, this person's just never going to stop. They're just going to die. And it worked for him. And he's been sober for like 10 years and he's an advocate and all this. And it's crazy. So I don't care. Whatever works for you, you know, God bless.
God bless.
But the success rate in healing sexual sin, I wish that there was a sound I could do for quotation marks of how many times I use them when I'm speaking about this stuff. But the success rate doesn't add up in the idea of using a 12-step program system for sexual sin.
I would also argue that that's not the same. And I don't know what I'm talking about.
Not at all.
Yeah, because I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. But, you know, me wanting to take a break from alcohol for 30 days is different than being like, ooh, that guy over there is pretty hot. Maybe I'll think about him later and masturbate.
And because we are not professionals, I'm going to listen to John DeLynn, who is a doctor. He has a doctorate in psychology. What his perception of the idea of masturbation being on the same level as heroin. Dr. John DeLynn gives his professional perspective on porn recovery groups within the LDS community.
You know, there are these groups that really do say that looking at pornography or masturbating is the exact same neurological process as being addicted to cocaine or meth or heroin. And as a psychologist, as someone with the PhD in psychology, it's not at all the same. It is not the same. Like that's like saying somebody who eats food 3 times a day is a food addict. Like the neural pathways, the neurological processes for needing some sort of sexual release on some sort of regular basis, and the use of images sometimes as a way to facilitate that is in no way comparable to the chemical processes involved in drug or alcohol addiction. They're not even comparable. So it's damaging to make them comparable, and it's comparable to take something so natural and healthy, which is finding some sort of regular sexual release, and pathologizing it and putting on the level of a drug or an alcohol addiction. It's in no way the same thing, and it's dishonest, unhelpful, and harmful to put them on the same level.
Agreed. We don't know what we're talking about, but doctors on the outside also feel this way, that using a 12-step program in this way, in a sort of a reckless manner, could be more harmful than helpful. According to people who have gone through the LDS 12-step recovery program, it is a similar setup to the Alcoholics Anonymous version, but they put, of course, their little LDS jazz spin on it. They have they had some jazz in there. They go, they had some like little horns that weren't there before.
Yeah, it's about the notes you don't hear. Like, hey, you're okay as a person.
No, that's yuck, gross.
You don't hear that note there.
No. You hear stuff about like Moroni and things like that, though. So It's really it's a make it work moment for the LDS Church in a way that ruins people's lives. So this operates like AA also in the sense that if you come as an LDS member, you go to your bishop and you say, I want to touch my wiener. Help me. The bishop can recommend you attend free meetings with others suffering. And I'm not trying to mock people who feel pain, but that's literally what they're saying you need help with, is that if you want to touch your pee-pee. So they go, just like an AA, meaning like we're holding, presumably in the church buildings, we're holding a meeting with everybody and we're all going to talk about it and go through this 12 steps together. And these other, you're in this room with these other, quote, addicts. The program was for a time, at least in some parts of the country, called Passage, spelled P-A-S-G, though it seems like they don't call it that anymore. The modalities are exactly the same, though. While going to somewhere, like we were talking about Lifestyle, right? These addiction facilities, you're going to have to fork over serious levels of cash to get your life ruined there. It's free at the church. You can get life ruined for free at the church 12-step program. So the steps themselves don't have the credentials I don't have the credentials to analyze the 12 steps of themselves. But on the surface, when you go to the LDS 12-step recovery guide, which is visible on the website, again, go check it out. You can read them. They seem like pretty generic mental health speak steps. It's the hidden implications to me that are scary. So this is the first step.
Step 1, admit that we, of ourselves, are powerless to overcome our addictions and that our lives have become unmanageable. I don't like that.
No, I mean, I personally do not care for a lot of the way, like, the 12 steps speaks about people and themselves, but it's not straying too far from the initial 12 steps, right? And that step is like, yeah, that sounds like that could be an addiction. But my question is, in that step, it's saying that your life has become unmanageable and that's why you're there. But who decides your life is unmanageable?
Yeah, and what do you mean powerless? Like, you're actually very powerful and everything's going to be okay. You're okay. It's the calming thing. It's what makes me okay. Because if I thought, you're dirty, you're wrong, it's unmanageable, you are powerless. Well, guess what? I'm going to go get some bottle of vodka and I'm going to crash out on my back porch.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think that these things are specifically very...
It just puts you down.
Yes. And even so if you go to like an Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Now, again, there's lots of people who criticize this. We're not professionals.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about.
But they have already put a spin on the first step, right? It's a little bit different. Regardless of, whether or not you like the 12-step program. In this setting, in this capacity, inside of the LDS church using this 12-step thing, are you making these decisions? Because in the outside world, you going to AA, it could be court mandated, but a lot of times it's yourself. You need help. You want help. Perhaps your spouse, your friends, your coworkers. In LDS land, it's really, at the end of the day, your church who decides when your life is unmanageable. And it's when you're not doing exactly what they want. They're not using medicine. They're not using hundreds of years of collected data and science and, just trial and error. They're using their own methodology. And so when you're going to these things, the first step is already the church telling you that your life is unmanageable a lot of the time.
I hate that. I hate somebody telling me what to do. Fuck you.
It's not for me.
I hate this. And like the goalposts are always moving and I'm always wrong because it gets you to like look inward and to think I'm bad, I'm wrong, as opposed to like, wait, why are these three guys sitting on a literal throne taking all our money?
Shut up, Amber.
These old fucking men with saggy balls taking our money.
Because they're prophets, Amber.
Ugh.
They're prophets. So... yeah, I mean, this is all, again, please remember that inside of this, you're in a world in which the authorities around you use words like sexual purity, which are all over their doctrine. Is your life unmanageable when you want to touch your pee-pee? I mean, it seems like they're saying it is. It seems like if you masturbate, you're spiraling out of control, right? Is it unmanageable if you want to look at two men consensually engaging in filmed lovemaking? Yes, they're saying it is. Your life is out of control. You need to go to a 12-step program. There are certainly members of the LDS Church who have compulsivity issues, like real-world problems, especially because this can happen anywhere, but is often exacerbated by the intense high-demand environments of high-control religions. So, yeah, there are people with real compulsivity issues in that church. Religious scrupulosity is really only being looked at seriously in the last decade or so. But that's not usually who they're talking about when they want people to attend these 12-step programs. They're usually talking about people who look at porn once in a while, right? And beyond that, when you're going to these 12-step programs as somebody who touched their pee-pee, you are sitting in a room with like a prolific child predator. I know you don't like me to use the word prolific, but I mean, they see them as the same.
He's the best child predator in all the land.
I mean, there's some really talented ones in this church, I'll tell you. But yeah, in the context of the 12-step program in the church, they're putting those people in the same category.
God, you're just like sitting there in this meeting and just being like, all I did was just look at one video of two men kissing because I like it for some reason. Now I'm sitting next to a guy that's like raped
like
kids.
Had children in his basement and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's not even an exaggeration. So if somebody is feeling their feelings about being, out of control, is it because of their own mental wellness, or is it because they feel unable to perform the demands of the church? Is it because they feel dirty? And if they feel dirty, is it because they're doing something that's wrong, or is it because the church has dictated that what they're doing is going to put them in hell? And I think you know the answer to that. Most of the time, it's because they have been bred into terrifying fear of going into like the worst place, or like you're like never seeing your family again.
Yeah, it's all dictated by some guy with no soul behind his eyes and saggy fucking balls and varicose veins sitting in an Eiffel Tower, an ivory tower, telling
or the
me,
Eiffel Tower,
or whatever.
That'd be fun if they sat at the top of the Eiffel Tower. Honestly,
push him off. Step 7, humbly ask Heavenly Father to remove our shortcomings. Man, fuck you.
Yeah. So
what are my shortcomings for? Like, fuck off. Who are these? Who is telling me this? Some woman that's beating her kids?
Yeah.
Sending her kids, like throwing them into cactuses, telling me I'm wrong?
By the way,
get fucked.
By the way, Jody Hildebrandt's children don't speak to her and haven't for like decades. Just FYI. So yeah. So that was step 7. You go through the steps. They are pretty on par with the 12-step program outside of the LDS Church. But there are things like that they like put their little spin on. And step 7, I think, is interesting. Just that humbly ask Heavenly Father to remove our shortcomings. But I know I'm saying it over. I need to drive this point home. Even though it's not that different from 12-step programs, those 12-step programs are generally not talking about things like masturbation or being gay. Generally speaking, 12-step programs are for people who are in active or in remission of an uncontrollable chemical addiction. You heard John DeLynne's statement. His statement is much more in line with the majority of mental health professionals than anything else. So when you follow the links that they connect to the LDS 12-step program, there's like, they have this click that he says like, go look at resources for help, right? And you click on these different parts of the LDS website, and they offer advice about what to do if you're feeling like you're an addict, which again, they're not properly acknowledging what an addict is in the first place. While you could look at this at the surface level and think, this is so great, they're just offering all this free advice on their website. It seems like most assistance that you receive from this church is tainted with their own self-gratification. It's tainted with their own their own
narcissism. It's the same as that preacher being like, well, I don't want women out. And I said it. I don't want them out. And he's like sitting around his other cronies. He's not saying this in front of women or anybody else. He's sitting around his own people, just being a little cunt.
Yeah.
Just being a sassy cunt queen.
Oh, yeah.
In his own little guise. And like no one's backing up. Like no one's like pushing up on this.
No,
and
of course.
Well, I said it. That's right. I said it. I'm like, well, okay. Yeah. Do you want a cookie?
Yeah. No, 100%. And on top of that, when they're not challenged in that way, you have to look at it and go, well, they're doing this because it's self-serving. Like their advice is keeping people in the church. And that seems to be taking precedent over anything else. So when you go to the support and recovery link, if you just like click on that link, you go to the support and recovery page inside of the churchofjesuschrist.org. And you know, they list off importance of finding support, and you like, where do I find help if I'm an addict? You know, you get Jesus Christ. You go look. You know, we recommend you go talk to family members, talk to friends, ecclesiastical leaders, sponsors, recovery meetings, and then at the bottom it says, then mental health and medical professionals you should visit. But let's read out what it says under mental health and medical professionals.
Mental health and medical professionals can often provide insight and unique skills necessary to recover and heal from compulsive and addictive behaviors. If we are still struggling with compulsive and addictive behaviors, even as we participate in the addiction recovery program, we should consider seeking professional help from a mental health or medical professional. When seeking professional help, church members should choose someone who is supportive of gospel principles. You know, I hate this because as someone who really does like to pray and call my friends and family and like, or at least the family that will talk to me, some of them won't. Like I do think prayer is very helpful, but I look at it as like this sort of, and not like, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I got to fix myself, and I got to cover up, and everything I do is wrong, and I'm wrong. They're taking something so beautiful. It's like taking a sunset and covering it in shit.
I agree with you, Amber. And I think really also what you're kind of describing is like religion versus spirituality.
Yeah.
Where not all religion is going to cause you to feel that way, but the spirituality is sometimes taken out of religion.
It is. And it's just like, follow me and give me money. That's just another corporation.
Yeah.
It's like that guy I showed you the other day who's like, yeah, I own 3 houses. And people say, Dave, why are you being so greedy with it? And I say, I own it for God. I own it for God. It's my Christian duty. It's like, you're just throwing this word around now.
Yeah. And I feel like that guy that you're talking about said he owns like 15 houses.
Yeah, it wasn't 3. It's like 15.
It was like a lot. And he was like, well, it's God's money. It's for God.
So we're just lying now?
Yeah, he seems like he doesn't even give a fuck. He's like not even trying to frame it in a way that would be like, oh, maybe he is spiritual. He's just like, yeah, I fuck bitches for God, you know?
Yeah, that's it. And the other woman, again, it's like your own little bubble, because the woman interviewing was like, wow, that's so poetic. And I'm like, bitch, stand up. Ask him.
Yeah.
But he won't get someone on his...
No,
yeah.
Of course not. But we go into that paragraph of their suggestions about reaching out to mental health and medical professionals. I feel like that last sentence is incredibly important and incredibly damaging, which is, again, when seeking professional help, church members should choose someone who is supportive of gospel principles. With that directive, we come back to the branch of care in the church called LDS Family Services. They are telling you point blank, you should not see a therapist unless they have the understanding of our church's beliefs. And I don't think that they should have the power to do that to people. I think that that's wrong. You can suggest it, but saying you should choose somebody supportive, not even somebody who's familiar, but someone who is supportive of our church's doctrines it's immoral at the very least.
Because they know that a person who's an actual scientist would say, hey, whoa, let's take 12 steps back here.
Yeah, they would say, I think you might have an unhealthy relationship with your church, for one.
This is abusive behavior.
Yeah. So while the church itself, when you go to the website, it doesn't offer a link directly to family services. And by the way, again, they seem to keep, they're pulling more and more content off of their mental health advice columns, I'm noticing.
They know it's bad.
I think that they know that they're getting caught with stuff, but they do recommend on the website, like one of those pages that we just spoke about, we just read off, contact your bishop. They'll connect you to somebody through family services. And that is where people like Jody pop into your life, who was on the list for many years of people to go. They go to the family services. They go, Bishop, I'm afraid of touching my wiener. And they go, we'll direct you to family services. And family services says, we have this great lady. Her name is Jody Hildebrand. And then you go to her specifically because the church told you to, and you end up paying her tens of thousands of dollars, which is why she has a $6 million mansion.
And the church isn't held accountable, even though you directed people to it. You are held accountable to this.
So their argument also, when they're pushed on it at all, the church, they say, well, she was removed from the LDS Family Services list a while ago because she had, again, been ruining lives for decades, and she had faced some licensing. Not even, it wasn't any consequence, but she had a flag on her therapist license, and so they removed her from the list. But even though she got removed, she was still being recommended by bishops on a one-on-one basis. The bishops and people in stake wards and stuff who still really supported her were still sending members to her when they came to them. So yeah, maybe it wasn't on like some master list anymore, but you knew she was doing things that were really fucked up, and you still allowed your leaders to send people to her. And she was also, by the way, Jody Hildebrand was also having one-on-one meetings with church elders about sex addiction as recently as like the last 3 years. Like, she was still in the ears of the top tier guys.
Wow.
So if you want to learn more about that, you can go back and listen to our episode about Adam Steed, which was from last season, or Jesse Hildebrand. We have a full episode on them. That is Jody Hildebrand's niece, who was held captive by her 15, 20 years ago. So Jody's been doing this for a long time. We covered Jesse on one full episode. We covered Adam on one full episode. If you want to look into the levels of depravity that Jody Hildebrand has engaged in for decades, that was seen by bishops, by wards. Jesse had their mouth taped shut in church. Bishops saw it. They supported it.
Woo! And I guess if you're in a scenario where it's like, I mean, we could see this in politics all the time. You sit around, you see all these things happening around you, and then you're just like, whoa, this is messed up. But everybody else is sitting there like, this is fine. So you feel like, I guess this is fine. It's not fine.
Yeah. And I do think that there was probably a lot of that happening at the time. But I think that's partly because the church encourages you to not push boundaries. So if you see something like this, and Jesse has said that there was at least one bishop who saw it and was like into it, like encouraged it. But I imagine a lot of people were feeling like,
whoa,
I guess I shouldn't rock. They must know what they're doing.
Yeah, this feels wrong, but I guess no one else is doing anything, and I don't want to rock the boat. Because if you rock the boat, you're kicked out of church. There goes your friends, there goes your family, there goes your safety net, there goes your job.
Yep. Also, so check those if you want. Also, check out Kara Burrell's content. She has some excellent content surrounding this if you want to go learn from an ex-Mormon. I must emphasize that while Jody has committed such egregious crimes in that she was actually sentenced, her teachings are right in line with the church's. She is not some crazy outlier, and while most therapists will not take it to the extreme she did, they are all spouting the same destructive, life-ruining advice as she was. Jody, along with women like Barbara Snow, are these fascinating cases of women enmeshed deeply in these oppressive patriarchal lives who have sort of become these Frankenstein's monsters of trying to lay progressive feminism on top of the patriarchal lifestyle. And then it creates this terrifying glob. It's, again, these warring parts of their brain, because Jody being respected in the church as a woman is way out of line with most of LDS teachings. But instead of sort of, like steering them towards a more inclusive, like progressive space, she kind of leaned into like the worst parts of patriarchal belief systems.
Yeah, that always like gets my craw whenever misogynistic men say, why are all these feminists so angry at this woman who just happens to be far right and she's in power? I thought you wanted women in power. And it's like, no, this person is entrenched in misogyny. She's just a speaking voice for you, and you will eat her at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You see that more on, we can point to people like in the right-wing journalist sphere, like Megyn Kelly or Laura Ingraham, who are participating in that way. And then you see it in this therapy world, and that's just like this entire other beast putting it into psychotherapy. It's crazy, but it is the same it's sort of the same, like the malignant ideology that you would see in a Laura Ingraham or what's the skinny woman? The real
Tommy Loren?
No, not. I mean, her too, but Bird Woman.
Oh, and Frank.
Ann Coulter.
Ann Coulter. How am I saying Frank? Ann Coulter.
Yeah. So like that kind of vibe, right? It's like malignant ideology, but boss baby it. You know?
Yeah. There is. Speaking of that movie, Women Talking, there is one elder woman who wants to stay and pretend like nothing happened, and she has a lot of sway in the community.
No, I bet.
And it's because if she leaves, then she knows it's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, we see that happen a lot with the women who have gone through these like traumas instead of facing it and going, oh, this was wrong what happened to me. I want to prevent it from happening to another. They go, no, I'm not looking around the corner. I'm here.
Right.
I'm doing this. And if you're not doing this, you're the enemy. You're bad.
Right. Especially with like older women in this system. I've seen it from like with me growing up. You've spent your teens and 20s and earlier washing the dishes, doing the diapers, doing everything. And then now you're older and then you want the young women to come in and you want them to take over because you're tired.
Yeah.
You're done. And she's like, you take care of it.
Yeah.
And they want women to bear the brunt of the kind of horrible men in these systems because they don't want to hear these men espousing garbage.
Right.
The women take the brunt of it. So it's like, please come in, take care of it, do it, and shut up about it because that's what I did.
Right.
And I'm tired.
Yeah. And I obviously disagree with that, but I think that's true. And it makes me sad. I think it sucks. And I don't take that as an excuse, by the way. I think it's cowardly to do that.
It's cowardly. And I think a lot of those women, they had very abusive partners.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Terrible partners mostly. It's like those ones fighting it for the patriarchal belief system the most have the worst of the worst partners. Like the most abusive are the ones who are like the women fighting for keeping like, you know, trad wifery. Not that there's anything wrong with trad wifery, but they don't want the choice anymore. They don't want they don't want anyone to have the choice, which is crazy pants to me.
Because they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And they were put under extreme pain. And it's like, what do you mean you get a choice not to do that?
Yeah.
I want you all to suffer like me.
Yeah. This subject is endlessly complex, and I think it wouldn't do it justice to not reiterate, as with the Satanic Panic, that the fear of demons, Satan, and demonic interference plays such a tangible role in the normal day-to-day life of an LDS member, that it seeps into therapy, and especially sexual sin is often spoken of as a demonic force. And this is not me just pulling this out of my ass. This has been spoken a million times by a million Mormons. For example, in Sherry Frankie's book, The House of My Mother, she describes why she felt terror of demons from the age of, as far back as 5.
And as soon as the lights went out, others would appear, grotesque figures straight out of a medieval hellscape, demonic entities leering with twisted grins. Their contorted faces haunted my sleepless nights, their agonized stories playing out in my dreams. Why might a little girl harbor such tangible fears of demonic possession? I'm sure the deeply religious paradigm I was steeped in played a role. We firmly believe in Satan's power and the ability of his legion of fallen spirits to possess individuals. We believe that evil can inhabit physical forms, sometimes fleetingly, sometimes for extended periods. Having been raised to believe the very air I breathed was thick with unseen forces battling for dominion over my soul, it was a small step for my young mind to imagine that battle raging in my own bedroom. Damn, girl.
Yeah. Here is author Martha Beck talking about the purpose of wearing temple garments.
Not wearing the underwear at all is simply disastrous. First, because it's against the rules. And second, because once an initiated saint has passed through the temple, he or she becomes an absolutely irresistible target for Satan's minions. Garments, it is said, repel these demonic spirits.
Here's talking about it in the book Unmask Alice in regard to the LDS Church's belief system.
Demonic possession wasn't something the church enjoyed discussing. It made non-believers roll their eyes, but it was part of the dogma. Satan would hijack minds and or bodies, controlling them for his own vile purposes, and that's what's caused many mental or even physical ailments.
So that's in reference again to the satanic panic being Satan entering your mind and your body and making you do and think bad things.
Is he going through the butthole?
I don't know. I think he...
Or through the mouth?
I feel like it might be too fun through the butthole. You know what I mean? This is obviously not exclusive to LDS belief system. Satan comes from mostly Christian religions, but the devil exists in other religions too. But some religions mention it. Some thrive inside of it. And LDS really thrives inside of being afraid of demonic interference. They have literal underwear that protects you from it. People have possessions.
What happens if you pee and you pull it down? Does the devil come up through the toilet? Like, what's going on?
Well, it's tricky. I have gone through the Book of Mormon. It is so boring. So boring. They bring up the devil a lot.
Natalie, you've got it You've got it pasted.
Oh, yeah. I've got all my, all my verses. Yea, and I also exhort you, my brethren, that ye be watchful unto prayer continually, that ye may not be led away by the temptations of the devil, that he may not overpower you, that ye may not become his subject at the last day, for behold, he rewardeth you no good things. It's like very standard, casting you out. They have the traditional, lake of fire reference in here, which is very just standard Bible stuff. But then a lot of it also talks about yea, verily I say unto you, if all men had been and were and ever would be like unto Moroni, behold, the very power of hell would be shaken forever. Yea, the devil would never have power over the hearts of the children or of men. And so in that, they're saying Moroni is the best kind of person, right? And Moroni is the one who's the most best ever. And Moroni is Mormon doctrine. And if you want to be like Moroni, you have to be like the prophets. And if you want to be like the prophets, you have to do exactly what they say. And if you're not like them, then the devil's coming into you. And so it becomes religious OCD in a lot of ways, right? But they really, you can go into the glossary. They talk about the adversary, the devil, Satan, Lucifer is referenced over and over and over and over again in this book. It's not even fun. It's there's not even fun stuff in it. It's boring stuff. But it talks about, there's a lot of gas lady stuff in there. Just being devil's going to tell you not to think this book's right. So better not. That's the devil. If you think the book's dumb, that's the devil.
Oh, wow. That's convenient for them.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
If you disagree with me, you're going, bye-bye. You're not going to get into heaven.
And, that goes deeper into things like when Jan Broberg was kidnapped. She talked about it to us, and we'll play the clip.
Kidnapping survivor Jan Broberg also explains how easily magical thinking and high control mysticism can seep its way into coercive abuse.
I think religious communities also, mine very much included in this, is that you have this patriarchal order of things. Women, children, they all need to have the opportunity to be curious, to ask questions. You don't just blindly follow a faith system and a person who is in that faith system because they can use it against you, which is what my predator did. He used the words mission. He used words like you have a very special mission and a very special thing to accomplish. I mean, he didn't say these things. The tapes, the aliens did. Right. But little girl who believes that there are other worlds, that this is our world is just one world in the vast universe, and that if I live my life the best I can become a goddess, of another world. You have religious teachings that have this fantasy thing attached to them, and you're going to be more susceptible to certain words and certain things that can be twisted.
She talked about how it was easy for her to believe the kidnapper who was telling her that she was an alien that was supposed to have his babies and all this stuff, because she was already sort of led to believe these really unbelievable things in church that were, she was like, well, I guess so. I mean, it's he's saying it. Yeah, he's saying it. So I want to bring back to Jodi because we have her to use as an example, but is in no way exclusive to her therapy. She very much used demonic possession as part of her therapy. So I really recommend that you watch or learn some about this case because it is so indicative of so much more than this isolated incident of Jodi and Ruby. Jodi was experiencing, quote, demonic possession while therapizing the Franke family. We now have access to footage of her possessions.
What?
Yeah. In the newest documentary, Devil in the Home, I think it's called, the Fall of Ruby Franke. There's some really good things to take away from it, I think. But they used a lot of new footage that the Franke family gave to them for the documentary that none of us have ever seen before. And part of that was Jodi having demonic seizures. I give them honestly like a 2 out of 10. They're like very boring to me. You can really tell people who haven't watched enough horror movies because it was so generic. You know, she's like writhing around. She's going like, she's mine, like that kind of stuff. But because Ruby and Kevin are devout, good little LDS members, they believed it with their entire being. They believed that Jodi was so wholesome and righteous that there were demons in the home with her and demons in their home as they watched Jodi go through this. They believed that Jodi was writing a new section of the Bible because they are led to believe Joseph Smith did it. Why can't the next one be Jodi? I mean, technically, that's fucking progressive, right? She's a lady.
Yeah.
The new section she was writing was called the Pen Papers, and she was doing it in their home. And they believed it. They believed because she was writing this new section of the Bible, the demons were attacking her. They believed, much like the murderers, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, that they were about to experience the end days and that they were called to shepherd people. They were the chosen ones. They all openly believed the end days were arriving. And Jodi was like one of the heads of how they were going to, survive it. And don't worry, by the way, we're going to go into Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell and how they connect to LDS and all of this stuff in an upcoming episode. But these belief systems of Jodi and Ruby and Lori and Chad are directly from and because of the LDS church. This is not some fringe belief. No matter how people try to paint it, these are not outliers. These are in line with LDS doctrine. There are literally thousands of hours, maybe, definitely thousands of minutes of speeches lovingly archived and transcribed and labeled on LDS's own website from prophets, from elders about demons, sexual sin, enemies in the home, evilness of feminism, evilness of sexy gay men, talking about the end times. You can go look at it right now. I encourage you to. Go watch some of their speeches. This is not fringe beliefs. This is the church's beliefs. Sifting through these links, I tell you, I feel myself being lulled into sort of a calm, even though that sounds counterintuitive because of the nature of what they're saying. But I do think it's helping me to understand why people commit so fully to this community. If you go to their website, there is a link for anything, any problem, any fear with directions and solutions. There aren't opinions. There aren't choices. There aren't gray areas. The outside world is hard. It's so hard to sort through people's opinions, through scientific observations, through strong emotions, even hidden agendas. But unfortunately, no matter how much it might be comforting to have the idea of this resource that has all the right answers, it just does not exist. To live inside of a world like this, where you go to this website and you put on any moment, you're scared, you're sad, you're angry, you're committing a crime, you're out of control, your anger, you have a problem with your temper, you have a problem with I don't know, you have a problem with like concentration. You can click on that site and it tells you a series of instructions and they say, don't worry, just do these things. It's going to be okay. You're going to get into heaven. And I understand why people want that. but they are not correct. To live in a world like that, you have to force it to the detriment of yourself and those around you, because those people who have pieced this site together are so deeply objectively wrong on so many things. And using these wrongs as a springboard for mental health is going to result in what I can only describe as a horror movie plot. But it's the kind where everything is serene on the surface. That serenity was used to Jodi Hildebrandt's advantage by way of social media and that adorable little family of Ruby Frankies. If you've been a listener to this show, you probably already know that the Frankies are far from the only LDS family channel. We've been vocally outspoken against family vlogging channels as a whole, but if you look behind the tow-headed, smiling, blue-eyed faces of family influencers, you're going to see the ghost of Joseph Smith sneering at you.
Coming up next week, as the internet pops off in the aughts, the church's leaders, as well as their investment branch, saw opportunities to draw people into the fold, and their methods make the expression "by hook or by crook" ring a little too literal.
Pandora makes it easy for you to find your favorite music. Discover new artists and genres by selecting any song or album, and we'll make you a personalized station for free. Download on the Apple App Store or Google Play and enjoy the soundtrack to your life.
When you're on the go and it's time to refresh your energy, grab an ice-cold Celsius. Where 0 sugar, 7 essential vitamins, and proven ingredients meets pure refreshment. Unlike traditional energy drinks, each sip of Celsius is a perfect balance of flavor and function. So whether you're hitting the gym, the office, or your next adventure, grab a Celsius at your local retailer or visit Celsius.com to learn more.